There you go. But before we dig into Thanksgiving dinner on Thursday, sometimes we need an expert to remind us about the proper protocol and social norms to be aware of this holiday season during a pandemic and this trying year. Our next guest tells us how to handle prying questions, controversial topics, and rogue guests at your next family get-together.
Well, the holiday season is finally here, but this year's Thanksgiving get-together is going to be anything but traditional. As you gather with friends and family, remember that things are going to be quite different this year. What's proper etiquette and protocol this Thanksgiving? Well, joining us now is Sharon Schweitzer, an international etiquette expert and trainer. Welcome to Studio 10 today, Sharon.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
Thanks for being here. So the holidays are supposed to be a joyous time to keep the conversation and tone happy and upbeat. How do you suggest we do that this year with it kind of being an election year, so many other challenges that 2020 has brought us?
Well, the important thing is to remember the ground rules. It's more important for us to listen to others, to family, to friends, than it is for us to talk and to impose our views on others. It's really very helpful for us to remember that there are lots of different views and we want to listen to what other people have to say. And sometimes when other people don't share the same views we do, it can be very helpful to say things like, well, that's a very interesting view, and that's something for me to keep in mind.
I love that. And there's a question that I seem to get a lot. When are you having kids? When are you going to be, moving on to a big house? All those kind of like prying questions that you get from relatives. How do we respond to prying questions like that?
There's two different things you can do to respond to those types of hardball questions, really tough questions. Number one, you want to make sure you respond with humor. And number two, you want to make sure that you enlist a few allies in the family or from your friends before you sit down at the table, because you know those questions are going to come from a variety of sources, and you probably know who they're going to come from. So if you prepare to answer those by saying things like, well, I don't want to bore everyone by talking about personal things like that. I would much rather talk about your recent trip to Tibet or your recent trip to Italy. Or I want to hear all about Aunt Elizabeth's new kitten or her new puppy. And then the allies you've recruited before dinner, they can say, oh, that's right. We want to hear all about how you found that new kitten or that new puppy. And you start talking about the new passion that person has about their last trip or their new pet. And then pretty soon you've got several people at the table who are off and onto a new topic that they just love. And the person who asked the question is also happy because they're talking about something that's passionate. And the discussion about your personal life is no more.
I love that. Kind of deflect and redirect the conversation. And you're introducing me to a new phrase for me today, naive realism. Can you tell me a little bit about that?
Yes. Psychologists tell us that many people have naive realism. And what that is it's the view that your opinion and your view of the world is shared by everyone else. And that's not the case. One of the things that we have is a very complex world with many different views, many different perspectives. And we have to realize that when we either gather for Thanksgiving, if we're noshing in different rooms, if we're gathered around a table, or maybe we're outdoors at different tables, social distancing, people are going to have different perspectives, different views, and different opinions. And we need to appreciate that and not try to impose our own view on others.
Okay, Sharon, so what happens if we follow all these guidelines and we still get a rogue guest? How's the best to handle them?
Well, those rogue guests can be really tough. There's a couple different ways to handle those rogue guests. Number one, you don't want to embarrass them in front of friends and family, because usually if you do that, they get even more rambunctious, and then you've really got an awkward situation on your hands. So if you do have a rogue guest, what you want to do is have conversation topics ready where you can kind of steer them back in the right direction. Maybe ask them about a virtual book club that they may be involved in, or bring up a topic of a book or a movie that you maybe have been seeing or maybe binge watching on Amazon Prime or Netflix. If that doesn't work and they continue in the direction of creating problems, the other thing you can do is ask if you can visit with them privately, and then talk to them about the holidays being a time of gratitude, a time of family gathering. And really what we want to focus on is being together and not creating dissension, because we don't want people to feel awkward. And hopefully they'll come around and agree with you and maybe say they've had a little bit too much of an adult beverage.
Absolutely. Okay, Sharon, thanks for taking time to virtually stop by Studio 10 today to keep us in check with our etiquette this holiday season.
All right, thanks, Holly. And Sharon, some good tips right there for anyone celebrating their Thanksgiving meal this Thursday. And